sponsored by the Degama Group.
Welcome to Rumbo Minero. Welcome, Cesar. How are you?
How about it, Jorge?
My name is Jorge Leon Benavides, and together with Cesar Campos, we are going to develop this program of Rumbo Minero. We are going to interview Mr. Raúl Jacob, Vice President of Finance and CFO of Southern Peru Copper Corporation. Remember that we have been talking every week, speaking and sending messages through this channel to President Dina Boluarte, to Premier Otárola, about the importance of the Tía María project precisely at this time of recession. We are going to see what he tells us, what progress has been made by the mining company with respect to Tía María.
And another issue that has always been of concern to us here in the Rumbo Minero program in recent days is how the one-stop shop is going, whether it will be enough to expedite permits and whether in some way or another it is necessary to deepen a reform of the state. We will talk to Christian Delgado, who is a lawyer, an expert in civil law, and also a person who knows a lot about mining procedures. We will address the issue of a modern state and an efficient governmental apparatus.
Join us now for the main mining news of the week.
Thank you, Jorge. These are the main mining news of the week. Compañía Minera Poderosa reported in its financial statement report that it allocated a total of $27.968 billion for exploration and mine development, $6.509 billion in infrastructure, and $785 billion in the acquisition of machinery and equipment. This balance exceeds by 14% what was invested in the same period of 2022. Which amounted to $32,675 million. Through a process entrusted by the Minem to Pro inversion, the company Interconexión Eléctrica S.A. was awarded 2 electricity transmission projects. These initiatives, which have a concession term of 30 years, total an estimated investment of $833 million, and their execution will benefit 7 regions of the country, increasing reliability and electricity transmission capacity.
Many thanks to Gabriela Chicoma for the main mining news of the week. Well, now we meet Raúl Jacob, Vice President of Finance and CFO of Southern Peru Copper Corporation. We are going to talk a little bit about what we have been talking about in all the programs, really, Tía María. Hi, Raúl. Welcome to Rumbo Minero. How are you?
Well, thank you very much, and greetings to all the audience of your respected program.
Tell us a little bit, first of Tía María, how are things going? There is a lot of expectation for Tía María because it is one of the projects that has to come out so that the financial projection that we have in Peru, being a country that needs so much from mining, economically speaking, an important project of this magnitude is needed. How are things going? And if you can also tell us a little about your expectations with respect to other important projects such as Conga, Michiquillay, and others that are out there.
Of course, in principle, Tía María would have, it has all the permits in force at this moment. We have the financial resources to start tomorrow. We are ready. And what we need is that what we see, which is that at the level of the project area, which is the Islay province of Arequipa, there is already a consensus in favor of the project. The regional government has a positive attitude. Obviously, they want to see a few more things, let's say, regarding the project, but the outlook is very positive. So what we need to do is to get everyone on the same page and move forward with this in the sense of already starting to open the operation, to start doing previous works, to be able to start with the opening of the mine. As I said, the company has the best disposition and the resources to start immediately with the project. And that would bring not only the benefit that you have explained, Jorge, but also something of great impact. That would be a tremendous signal at world level with respect to the unblocking of projects in Peru. And that would attract, in a very important way, capital to the country. So there is more than one reason beyond the strictly economic and social reasons that this great project would have. We have a very important impact on the investment climate. This at a time when the country's GDP is falling. This would clearly help to turn around, let's say, that first current image, right?
Indeed, we all agree that there have been external and internal factors, Raúl, to prevent a much more successful and optimal investment dynamic as we have been expecting. I am very struck by what Elmer Cuba of Macroconsult, former director of the BCR, said this week in the newspaper Gestion. If we do not rebound more than 2% in 2024, the government would be to blame. But taking this to the mining industry, it is something similar to what is called Victor Gobitz. In other words, if we really activate the Tía María, Yanacocha Sulfides, and the other projects that are still in the pipeline, the weight that mining will contribute to GDP growth will be much greater. How should the government define its attitude towards these challenges facing the mining industry?
What we see is that the concerns in social issues have become, let's say, much more important and relevant. The issue of the favorable impact of mining projects and operations in the regions of Peru. I believe that this is a very important element. This is a year in which mining investment is falling by almost 20%. It is falling back by almost 20%. That is on the investment side, which is the look into the future. In the, let's say, operational part, as we had a very bad year, 2022, where Antamina had some technical difficulties, but even so...
And at the beginning of 2023 as well, isn't it?
Las Bambas was stopped for a good part of the year. Cuajone was interrupted for 54 days. When let's say, you see what happened in 2022. And also for 2023, the favorable factor of the operation of Quellaveco already at full capacity, right? Well, there is a rebound in production, but at the same time, there is a drop in investment. And that basically could be reversed relatively quickly. There are several measures that we believe could help a lot in that direction. For example, in the Peruvian state, the mining companies have certain limits as to how much they can, at what capacity they can operate these plants and so on. It is more or less 5% above the plate capacity of the equipment. Why not raise that limit to 10 or 15% so that companies that can make small investments in their plants increase production, and that increases the whole cycle and the whole economic impact of the mining operation. For example, that is one element. The other is this, in which progress is being made, but we still see a bit of a slow pace in terms of permitting. There have already been some devices that help a lot in the sense of proposing the concept of a one-stop, the concept of a single window, and to be able to advance in the direction of having a point in which environmental issues are discussed, technical issues are discussed, and once this point is passed, one receives the corresponding permits. I would like to specify that we are not asking in any case to lower the environmental standards. It is simply that we make things work in a more coordinated manner, so that companies and investors in general have better predictability and also approval in accordance with the deadlines that these devices have.
I wanted to ask you, Raúl, about what we are already used to. We know that there is a population. We know that there are people who are genuinely concerned about certain aspects that sometimes they do not know about. And it is the task of the mining company to talk, to dialogue, to let them know what their ways of mining are going to be, and of the government to get involved as well. But there are also others who are a minority and who are not necessarily people from the population, but people from other places that have barely approved Tía María. They are NGOs, they are anti-mining companies that what they do is immediately try to set fire to the prairie. And by setting fire to the prairie, I mean to fill the people of the neighboring populations with false ideas about what is going to happen with the mining company. How do you prepare yourselves with respect to this issue, with the coordination with the government? Because whenever a new project comes out, we have seen how long it took. They immediately attack without any support, but they attack immediately, and that has to be foreseen.
I would like to add something that we have seen very clearly in the last 2 years. Particularly during the government of Pedro Castillo, and that is that these opposition groups that normally wrap themselves in a, let's say, they left the environmental issues aside and basically went on to put economic pressure on the projects and the companies. I think that this is a point that should be very clear, because what we have seen in the different projects and operations that were interrupted is the presence of people who even negotiated a commission with a community, for example, with respect to a project. With a community, for example, with respect to how much the negotiations with the mining companies were obtaining. Going to your question, it is very important, and indeed the company has a responsibility to explain the benefits of the project, to explain the benefits of the project, to explain to the community the benefits of the project, to explain why, for example, in the case of Tía María specifically, there will not be tailings, there will be no tailings, there will be no fumes. Therefore, the environmental management is much more limited. But even the great concern of many of the farmers is the use of water from the Tambo River. In the case of Tía María, it has been explained that a desalination plant is going to be built, and the company offers its best effort to support the construction of a desalination plant. The company is offering its best efforts to support the construction of a dam for the Tambo Valley, which would have the great advantage of stabilizing water flow. Water flow, more than half of the water from the Tambo River goes to the sea. Preventing this from happening would allow that precisely in the low water seasons from which we are coming out of at the moment, because there is a continuous flow of water flow, which would allow the development of a rice harvest and of other products that are manufactured, that are grown in the valley, would have a higher productivity. So that is the process, let's say, and that is the offer and the company's bet. But for this to become a reality, it is necessary that the Peruvian government to be present, and in its role as authority to explain to the population that they should not be worried, but rather that there is a great opportunity here for all the people of Islay and the Arequipa region, Islay and the Arequipa region specifically.
Thank you very much for being with us, Raúl, explaining to us something that we have been talking about for weeks with great expectation. I know that you are doing a very good job of communication at the highest level with all the communities and a call to the government. Now, as they say, the ball is in the government's court. The mining company has done a great job. The communities have also done their part to have a great communication, but without the presence of the government, the mining projects cannot be carried out. And we call from here to the President of the Republic of Chile, the President of the Republic of Chile, the President of the Republic of Chile, the President of the Republic of Chile. And we call on President Dina Boluarte, on Premier Otarola, so that once and for all, in order to get out of this recession, we can put in place the government's quota that is needed and move forward with the Tía María project, which is so important for Peru. Thank you very much, Raúl. Thank you very much. Now, Gabriela Chicoma has something to tell us about Spomina. Go ahead, Gabi.
Thank you very much. Expomina Peru, the largest and most important mining event of the year 2024 with 16 years of trajectory, with the special participation of the United States as the guest mining country. Expomina Peru is the only Peruvian event certified by the United States Department of Commerce. Do not be left out and be part of this great mining event. You look like or are at Expomina Peru. For more information, visit our website, www.expominaperu.com.
Well, in the America Mining Block, we welcome from Wall Street, New York, Jose Gonzalez, international editor of our magazine, Rumbo Minero. How are you, Jose?
Nice to meet you, Jorge. Very well, thank you. Always a pleasure to be on the program.
Jose, tell us a little bit. This week, the President of Panama, Laurentino Cortizo, has announced the calling of a referendum on December in order to submit to popular consultation the cancellation of the copper, molybdenum and gold mining contract of the mining company. Panama, subsidiary First Quantum of Canada, following of Canada after controversies and protests against the project itself. What is behind the announcement? What does it mean for Panama and the company insofar as it has been developing the project since 1991 with an investment of approximately $9 billion? Is it Panama? Today, a place that was seen as a good place, good for investment in general and in mining in particular. And now it could be seen as something, and now this could be seen as something very negative for the investors that usually go around those lands. What do you think?
What you say is correct, Jorge. First Quantum Panama's operations had gone practically unnoticed since they started operating in 1996 until the Constitutional Court declared in 2018 the contract with the mining company as unconstitutional, generating a dispute with the company that caused the suspension of the contract in 2022 and the immersion of a new one that was approved by the Executive Congress last week. Such approval generated a wave of protests in the country, which provoked the announcement of President Cortizo last Sunday, who also announced that the government would raise a law prohibiting metallic mining at national level, without specifying if such law would affect the 35 existing mining projects in the country or only the future projects. According to him, the contract will be submitted to a referendum to be held on December 17th, which, as he points out, would result in a negative vote against the mine and would cease operations, transfer it to a new company, or take over operations from the state. They are also contemplating closing the mine, but without any established environmental protocol. Panama's electoral tribunal has, however, refused to organize the referendum, arguing that the conditions do not exist to do so in such a short period of time and that Law 400406, the mining contract law, has an unconstitutional claim pending in its current version. The contract grants exploitation rights to First Quantum for more than 20 years and would generate an annual income of $375 million to the Republic of Panama. This is the largest fiscal income for the Republic of Panama and the largest investment ever made in the country. Apart from the canal, the mining operation, on the other hand, of some 300,000 tons of copper concentrates per year among 13,600 hectares in Balboa, Botija, Colina, and Valle Grande, which are exported from Puerto Rincon, represents 1.5% of the global copper production, almost 5% of Panama's GDP, and 40% of First Quantum's global income. The mine generates 8,000 direct jobs and 40,000 indirect jobs. Following the presidential announcement, First Quantum's shares fell 28% in Canada, and Panama's dollar bonds led losses in emerging markets, with the 2036 bond close to a 14-year low. Fitch Ratings assigned a negative outlook to Panamanian debt in late September, citing fiscal pressures and uncertainty over the government's ability to address them. The debate surrounding First Quantum and a massive drought that forced the government to cut traffic through the Panama Canal have further stoked fiscal concerns. According to JP Morgan, if the contract is revoked, the likelihood of Panama losing its short-term investment grade rating increases significantly, as lower confidence in the country's institutional framework would likely result in lower investment and lower medium-term growth. Indeed, as you say, Jorge, Panama, which has always been conceived as a country that comes in handy for foreign investment with this politically mishandled controversy, would generate significant damages, and if First Quantum's contract is cancelled, it could initiate an international arbitration process that could cost the Republic tens of billions of dollars.
On the other hand, Jose, always, of course, in the international arena, a shocking piece of news has attracted attention. BlackRock, which is the most important investment fund in the world, with close to or more than $10 trillion in assets, is recommending those who are focused on climate change issues to invest in mining companies. Clarify for us what BlackRock meant by this.
It's like this, Caesar. According to BlackRock, investors are missing a huge profit opportunity in the energy transition to the extent that it has a backward-looking view of the metals and minerals industry. That's what the fund points out. Ibi Hamro, BlackRock's global head of thematic and sector investing, noted in an interview with Bloomberg that his conversations with BlackRock's investor clients have found that they are missing an extraordinary opportunity in the mining space. According to Hamro, recent changes in global mining demand that investors update their view of the sector, taking into account 1, its role in decarbonization in the mining sector, 2, a more disciplined position in the use of financial resources. In the past, the mining sector used a lot of financial resources that with price volatility it lost. There is much more rationality in the sector. And 3, a reduction in capital costs as a function of public investment to ensure the supply of minerals for national security reasons, which is equivalent to a subsidy to the mining sector that improves its results. The BlackRock executive affirms that the energy sector is leaving behind its addition to fossil fuels, evolving a form of mechanical energy capture, which is the future of energy generation on the planet. As for the recent price correction, Metals, BlackRock notes, points out that it is not the short-term dynamics that will determine the dynamics of the sector, but what will happen in the next 10 to 15 years. It highlights, for example, that the global copper industry is undercapitalized, representing extraordinary growth opportunities. BlackRock also stresses that mining companies themselves should invest in decarbonization processes in their production processes, as investors are paying premiums for companies that are characterized by producing low carbon emissions. This is another indicator, CISA, that the mining sector is increasingly in the focus of investors and will become a center of attention going forward. Great opportunity for our country and mining worse.
Thank you very much, Jose, for all these topics that were also touched in Rumbo Minero, in our magazine Rumbo Minero. Thank you and best regards. Always my pleasure. Well, next I would like to present to you, as always, the magazine Rumbo Minero. You can go to www.rumbominero.com and download the entire magazine, all the information on these very interesting global and national mining issues at www.rumbominero.com. And this every 45 days. You have a new magazine that you can download completely free of charge. Next, Cesar, we have...
Of course, Jorge, as always, presenting the block of the Institute of Mining Engineers of Peru.
In this edition, the Mining Convention has undoubtedly helped us to set new objectives, to recognize the various challenges facing the sector, and above all, to consolidate tangible solutions and viable routes to strengthen the industry as we know it today and direct it towards the mining of the future, the one with investments that generate well-being and sustainable development.
Today, we can create a multi-sectoral and transversal mining industry. Albandar is a necessary and deserved recognition to all the initiatives, projects, works, and innovations that promote the development of Peru and the mining industry. In addition, issues of vital importance such as labor inclusion, equal opportunities, and the approach of the sector to the new generations drive Perumin to be a space that narrows the access with fraternity among all participants.
Gathered at the foot of the Misti, we are proud to be warmly welcomed by Arequipa, a region that reaffirms its commitment to the sector and that during the Perumin event becomes the mining capital of the world. Thank you very much, dear Arequipa.
Now we meet Christian Delgado, civil lawyer and partner of Delgado Abogados. We are going to discuss what is a modern state and an efficient governmental apparatus, how to achieve this issue. That really worries us a lot in Peru. How are you? How are you? Welcome, Jorge Cesar.
Thank you very much, Jorge Cesar, for the invitation. I am very pleased to be here.
We have had, in the last weeks, different specialists, and we have consulted you about the recent announcement of the digital single window, but we would like to have your analysis from your point of view. We would like to have your analysis from the legal point of view. What is new in the recent regulation of the digital single window for the mining sector as opposed to the one enacted by Supreme Decree number 016, 2019? EM in 2019, we have a very great expectation for the single window. The first one maybe talked about the one-stop shop, but what we do not see is a time in which, what is the time in which this is going to be ready? An organization. We don't see many clear signs that the digital single window is going to happen. Tell us a little bit, what is your appreciation?
Sure. Well, to begin with, this recent initiative of the digital single window that was relaunched, re-inaugurated in the last Peru Min is not so new. It is not so new because you have just mentioned it very well. In 2019, a Supreme Decree had already been issued also by the Ministry of Energy and Mines, creating this digital single window, VUD, by the acronym. Only when it was actually created, there were expectations. In other words, we are going to gather a group of public entities, bring them together, create a digital virtual support so that the procedures can be carried out there. It happens that this was not complete because it did not gather all the entities with which one has to carry out a procedure to start a mining project. And there was no digital support either. So what happened now in 2023 with this, let's put it this way, this new announcement, this relaunching was basically the following. And that's where the novelties come in, to include 5 more entities, SURFOR, ANA, also the Superintendents of State Assets, the SBN, in order to somehow facilitate and simplify these procedures at the mining level. We must remember something. This takes place in the context of an idea of administrative simplification. It is important exactly what you are saying because, Jorge, here we are talking about simplifying, lightening, and facilitating the procedure.
A study commissioned by the National Society of Mining, Petroleum and Energy to the Peron Institute of Economics determined as a result that 19 state entities are involved because we are not only thinking about those that correspond to the environmental sector, we are talking about regional governments, we are also talking about local governments. It is really appalling. I wanted to ask you from the regulatory point of view, because this is a specialty. In reality, comparatively in Latin America, to what degree are we, or in general with the mining countries, to what degree are we in bureaucratic obstacles regarding the permits that must be granted for mining operations?
For the startup phases of a mining project here, we have approximately more than 200 administrative procedures to carry out in more than 10 public entities. These 19 public entities, which also include regional governments, in short. I am very honest with you. In terms of simplifying this bureaucracy, it is really something that can take a long time. In other words, to be able to put in a single area, in a single digital medium, so to speak, all the entities, all the procedures, the personnel that will work exactly with respect to these procedures is an issue that, at a legal level, may be in the norm. But here comes the legal contribution, so that the norm simply requires not only political will, but also budget. Budget for each of these entities to have, for example, the integrated platform of the BUD digital single window, so that there is synchrony and parallelism among all of them, and that procedures are not being repeated. So again, the fact that the standard is in place is commendable, but to put it into practice, I believe that if this is not done, we are going to continue with the siren song. At a regional level, we exceeded twice the regulatory time to start up a mining project. Approximately 4 years. In other words, the project has started, or let's put it this way, initiated. The procedures to be able to make the project viable, 4 years have to go by for a mining project to start up on day one, right?
Agreed. Mr. Roque Benavides, Engineer Roque Benavides, talked about the single window, and in case it comes out and it is a success, he said that it would put an end to corruption. Do you agree with that?
Yes, in part. Not in the following sense. All the administrative procedures that can be carried out, licenses, authorizations, permits, even if they are incomplete in this single window, the fact is that there are other instances, there are other phases of these procedures. I mean, that will no longer depend on the digital single window. So what the digital single window can guarantee is transparency. And of course, with transparency, everything that is uploaded to the single window, everything that is resolved, everything that is decided will be traceable. You will be able to see what things were resolved, what was not resolved, and thus avoid, well, or what was not resolved.
Probably sometimes the things that generate corruption are hindered so that they are not carried out, right?
Another more important element, perhaps, or as important as that which is subject to corruption normally, is at a non-basal, non-initial level, such as this one. Not basal, not initial like this, but already at a level of saying yes or no regarding a project, regarding an authorization, which, we must be very honest, happens behind a software, behind a digital platform, right?
And when along the way, the state has been increasing each of these standards, which although the mining industry wants to comply with them, some of them repeat or duplicate some types of regulations, objectives, and that is what really delays. In your capacity as a lawyer, Christian, to conclude, at least from my side, a reform of the state would have to be much deeper than what we imagine. That is to say, in my opinion, the single window is a palliative for what then has to come precisely to prevent the existence of certain areas of the state, be it regional government, local government, executive power, legislative power that put their hand in and bring in mining investment.
The important thing about a supreme decree, I completely agree with you, Cesar. The important thing about a supreme decree such as this one, which implements or improves, let's say it this way, which potentiates this single window, is that it is a rule that in itself is actionable. What do I mean by this? I mean that if, for example, now a sector of the mining guild, a mining company, an interested third party would like, for example, to contribute to the implementation of this, it could file a legal action, an injunction lawsuit against the Ministry of Energy and Mines and say that an additional budget request should be formulated suddenly to implement all this that you yourselves are promising. So that is an absolutely possible way, in a legal way, to be able to make the state itself act what you are legislating. I put you a single window, I say I am going to congregate more entities. I promise I am going to make a procedure, but I have neither budget, nor time, nor all the administrative simplification or interoperability. So wait when this happens. To avoid that, as I tell you, we have a supreme decree that can be perfectly implemented. Some interested party, some member of the mining industry can say, demand for protection, state, comply with this. More budget, more interoperability, more regulations to make this really work.
Okay, good. Christian Delgado, civil lawyer and partner of Delgado Abogados. Thank you very much for being on Rumbo Minero and clarifying a little bit more on this issue that, well, that the whole sector is waiting for after Premier Otarola's statement, and let's hope that at some point they come to an agreement in the government so that this can be done faster. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Gabriela Chicoma has something to tell us about Spomina. Go ahead, Gabriela.
Thank you very much. Expomina Peru from September 11th to 13th, 2024 will be chaired by Luis Rivera, Executive Vice President of Golfis Las Americas, and integrated by an advisory board of renowned mining leaders who will support us in achieving a magnificent organization. Highlight your brand through the different sponsorships we offer at Expomina Peru, networking opportunities, participation in exclusive activities, promotion in the media, among other important benefits. For more information, visit our website www.expominaperu.com.
Good. Coming to the end of the program, we can conclude a little bit, Cesar, with respect to, for example, Raúl Jacob of Sauda. Tia Maria, that everything is ready, the conversations are at their best, the population is collaborating and wants to talk, the communication, let's say, is at its best, but for me it is a little bit, I would say, a little bit difficult. But for me it is a bit, I would say, unbelievable that the mining company is asking for the presence of the The mining company is asking for the presence of the government when normally it is the government that has to talk to the communities and support the mining company to explain precisely the dam, the desalination of the water, how this is going to be done, complying with all the parameters. But it cannot be that precisely at a time of recession, the government is not present in the way it should be, not only making a gesture, but being in the place and defending both parties to reach a good agreement.
We remembered it talking with Raúl that Elmer Cuba himself, who has been director of the Central Reserve Bank and is also a partner of Macroconsul, has pointed out this week that next year it will only be the government's responsibility whether or not we have sustained growth. Therefore, external exogenous factors, that will be left aside, and precisely it also has to do with permits, with the so-called and what Elmer Cuba himself calls permissomania, that is to say that this is what must be avoided. It is not called permissivism because it is not a treatise on permits, but rather permissomania, what exists and what must be stopped. Attorney Christian Delgado, Jorge, has been, I think, very accurate, very profound, and also in pointing out everything that awaits us. In fact, the one-stop shop is a useful solution for the moment because of the way in which the actors have to activate it. I hope that the private sector will also be called upon and be present.
Hopefully it will be summoned, and hopefully, as Mr. Tarola said in Perumin, hopefully this will be done quickly, because the single window is just to shorten the steps and to be able to receive more investment and not to have the recession we have. So we have to open the doors to investors, not close them. So if it is said that we are going to work on a single window, then let us get down to work. Let us also call the private sector and move forward with a tool that will be very important for investors. So there are really, I believe, several pending issues that depend on the Peruvian government. So please, a call to President Boluarte, to Mr. Tarola, to make sure that these issues are not left behind and that they are immediate, urgent issues. Well, my name is Jorge Leon Benavides, and together with Cesar Campos, we have developed this program, Rumbo Minero. Do not worry, in a few minutes we will come with Peru Construye in our construction program. On behalf of the Degama Group, we thank you, and don't forget, we are here every weekend on this same signal.